my name is Gerhard Schwadner, and welcome to Selling Power TV. Today, we have the great pleasure of meeting with Frank Cespedes. He is the author of a wonderful book called Sales Management That Works. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you, Gerhard. Pleasure to be here.
I'd love to talk with you about how effectively people can lead a sales team. How do great sales leaders prepare their team for change?
In sales, what you need to do is focus on what is going on now with our target buyers. If in fact we have a strategy, that strategy is making choices about where we play and where we don't play. And in those areas where we choose to play, one of the responsibilities of the sales organization is to know everything there is to know about who's buying there, why, and how. Then I think if you're a sales leader, you've got to ask yourself, do our call patterns in the sales force reflect our strategic choices about where we're playing? At the end of the day, there is no substitute for a process that forces you to have ongoing customer contact. You've got to go out there on a continuing basis and have customer contact if you're going to deal with change.
In your book, you spend a fair amount of time on the need for training salespeople and preparing them for the battle. What is the role of the sales leader in onboarding salespeople?
Many sales leaders operate with a false choice, a false dichotomy in mind. And that is, if I can hire an experienced salesperson from somewhere else, then I don't have to spend as much time on onboarding, training, development, etc. So much of success in sales depends on the internal relationships that they develop with others in their company. And when somebody leaves company A and goes to company B, they leave all of that behind. They have to recreate it. That's what onboarding is about. So the sales leader's role is to make sure there is an onboarding process that accelerates the development of those relationships and knowledge about how to sell our product at our price in our market.
In your book, you write about that the average company spends about $1,457 on sales training. What does the sales manager need to do to get a high ROI on that sales training investment?
Adults in general learn in very task-oriented contexts. So sales training needs to be very task-oriented. The other thing that's important, and this is especially important in sales learning is a great example of what the theorists call modeling behavior. In other words, the salespeople learn the most, not from a trainer, not from a professor, not from a consultant. They learn the most from watching the best of their peers perform the key sales tasks. And then the third element in sales training is just-in-time learning. Salespeople tend to pay attention to information when they need it. And usually that means on their way to make a call or even during the actual sales conversation. And this is an area where the newer tech tools, the newer sales enablement tools are and should be the seller's friend.
In your book, there's a new term that caught my eye, which is you talk about adaptive selling.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Only individual customers buy. All right, so we start there. And if all customers sound the same to you, don't try to make a living in sales. You're probably not going to succeed. Adaptive selling refers to the ability of the salesperson to identify those differences and then adapt their ability to explain and document the value in terms that make sense to that customer, not to some abstraction called the market.
And high performers do it naturally. They know how to differentiate, and they're more curious about customers. So What can sales leaders do to create consistently high performance?
In sales, however, when it comes to high performance, basically, I look at two things. Again, it's about people. So first you start with hiring, right? And here I think it's important to recognize, Gerhard, that sales hiring presents challenges that just don't exist to the same extent in other business functions. This is an activity in business where the vast majority of people learn by doing. And the reality, I think, is that most companies' standard hiring practices make a tough job unnecessarily tougher. They rely much too much on one or two interviews. Of course you interview. People have to work with people, all right, especially in sales. But you have to augment interviews by the sales manager with other people.
Well, I think we can create an analogy, Frank, between hiring the right actor for the right role and hiring a salesperson for the right role, because when you hire an actor, you want to ask yourself the question, can that actor step into the character of the role they play? And when you hire a salesperson, you can ask yourself, can that salesperson get in sync with the character of the customer?
Yeah. It is very, very difficult to train someone who's a bad fit for the role in the first place. You've got to be one heck of an acting coach in order to do that. So, all of these things are interconnected, but it does begin with the right people.
What does good performance feedback look like?
Good feedback, I think, is first tailored to the individual. And it also recognizes that at the end of the day, it's about behavior. Some salespeople, their problem is not enough lead generation. Other salespeople, it's the way they talk about price. And then every sales force, in my experience, always has a couple of those people who do everything right, except the most important thing, which is to close the sale. And good performance feedback understands what is it that I'm going to talk about with this individual and makes it behavioral, as opposed to what a lot of performance feedback is, which is, basically versions of saying to people, get better.
You can learn all that and more in the new book that Frank wrote, Sales Management That Works. Head over to Amazon.com and get it, or get it directly from Harvard Business Review Press. They also make custom editions for companies. So a lot of sales organizations want to get this for everybody on their sales team. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Gerhard. I appreciate it.